آریانا افغانستان یگانه شبکه تلویزیونی ملی افغانها در خارج از کشور.
توانا بود ارکی دانا بود، ز دانش دل پیر برنا بود.
دلای آبخونکی خدای پنامه گران قدرمن و دوستانا سلام علیکم. هیله چرا خوشحال هوارامسی او دین روز ده پوهن رناده به اخبرانه دیر خیر اغلاست. زه مریم اسماعیل ارسلایم او ده اخبرانه تاسته ده آریانا افغانستان ده نریوالی شبکه سخیر ورندکام خدای دکری چه ده نرازه ده پوهن رناده اخبرانه هم ستاسو بسر پور سیگی. بینندگان عزیز و ارجمند برنامه دانش روشنایی است. بارزوی صحت و سلامت شما. برنامه امروز آغاز میکنیم. امیدوارستم که شاد و صحتمند باشین و افتی خوش و پرثمره در هر گوشه و کنار جهان که هستین با عزیزانتان به خوشی و آرامش سپری کرده باشین. و باز هم خوشحال هستم که یک بار دیگه در برابر شما عزیزان قرار دارم و در برنامه امروز با ارتباط معرفی چهره های موفق، جوان عزیز و موفق و با استعداد را با خود داریم که میبینیم سارا جان ناصری است که خوش آمدید. میگم خوش آمدین سارا جان، خوشحال هستم که هستین با ما. و البته دوستای عزیز و ارجمند، وقت جوانایی را که ما با برنامه میارم، مقصد از معرفی از اونا این نیست که اونا برای خودشان کدام ضرورت نیست، ولی ما شما ضرورت داریم که با این جوانان موفق و با استعداد و زحمتکش و پرکار معرفت و آشنایی پیدا کنیم، از تجاربشان بیاموزیم و اینا بر ما یک انرژی مثبت و یک قوت قلب میبخشه، یک امید است بر ما که میبینیم که جوانای ما چقدر آینده ساز هستند و از تجاربشان استفاده میکنیم و جوانای دیگه یاد میگیرن. متاسفانه که تلویزیون های افغانی جوانان نمیبینن، اما پدرها و مادرها والدین میبینن و اکثرا برنامه های چون امروز وقتی که مادرها و پدرها میبینن همیشه لنگش به فرزندان خود میفرستن و از آنها خواهش میکنن یا دعوتشان میکنن که ببینن که از تجربه چنین میوانه موفق ما اونا بیاموزن. و امیدوارستم که شما عزیزایی که از طریق فیسبوک برنامه رو میبینید، اگر لطف کنین و سخاوت کنین و برنامه را در صفحه خود هم شریک بسازین تا دوستای شما هم مستفید شون و بتونن که این برنامه بسیار خوب و زیبای ما را ببینن. البته سارا جان ناصری که یک معسل است در پوانتون یا یونیورسیتی کالیفرنیا ایرواین UCI که یکی از پوانتون های بسیار خوب و بلند سویه است، با رشته کامپیوتر ساینس و انجینیری برق درجه تحصیلی خود در ماه مارچ به خیر اخذ میکنند و کاندید پروگرام PhD و یا دکترا هستند. و سارا جان نام خدا از هر صفتی که بگوین دارایش است و از هر صفت برخوردار است. یک جوان لایق و موفق و پرکار و زیبا و خوشقیافه و خوشخوی و خوش اخلاق و بسیار جوانی که لذت میبرین که امروز صحبت کنین، از صحبت باش یاد میگیرین، میبینین که وقتی که طرز تفکرش میبینین و میبینین که چقدر نام خدا پیشرفت کرده در یک سن بسیار جوان، بسیار زیاد لذت میبرین و خوش میشین که چنین جوانایی داریم. و دلیلی که گفتم امروز ما سارا جان دعوت کردیم با خاطر که میخوایم که از تجاربش بیاموزیم و به اصطلاح اون چیزایی که سارا جان خودش یعنی راه پیدا کرده که پیشرفت کنه از اون راه استفاده کنیم و البته جوانایی که جوانای ما اکثرا خواص و اوصاف و صفتایی که سارا جان دارن تعداد زیاد جوانا دارن اما جوانای ما از اون استعدادی که خداوند برشان داده استفاده درست نمی کنن. یک تعداد میکنن یک تعداد نمی کنن و خوشبختانه سارا جان از جمله جوانایی است که اون استعداد و عقل و اوش و فکری که خداوند برش داده خودش زحمت کشیده و واضح است که با راهنمایی پدر و مادر هم بسیار رول داره خدا به یک جای رسانده که به بسیار وقت کم و زیاد در مورد سارا جان ما براتون نگفتم به خاطر در مورد پیشرفت‌های تعلیمیش به خاطر خوش دارم که از زبان خودش بشنویم و دوستای عزیز قسمی که میفهمین جوانا و نوجوانای ما که در اینجا تولد شدن اونا همیشه به زبان انگلیسی مصاحبه همراهشون میکنیم به خاطر که واضح است که همه فرزندان ما به زبان دری و پشتو که اگر هر زبانی که زبان پدری مادرشان باشه مکالمه کرده میتونن یک محاوره روزمره را پیش برده میتونن اما به قسم که به قسم تکنیکی و یا تکنیکال کانورسیشن که اگر بخواین داشته باشن بهتر است که با اون زبان انگلیسی که راحت تر است با اون زبان صحبت کنن و ما همیشه از بیننده های خود خواهش کردیم که هیچ وقت جوانای ما را دل سرد نسازین به خاطر از اینکه اونا به زبان انگلیسی صحبت میکنن چون ما خودم اینمی آزادی را بر میهمانای خود بر میهمانای جوان خودم فراهم ساختیم و اینمی قانون برنامه است و شما هم انشالله که براتون قابل قبول است و باید باشه انشالله. خب سارا جان درتی خدا کنه که دق نارده باشی.
No, it's all good.
Sarah Jan, I just didn't want to say so much about you because there's a lot.
Thank you.
And then you would have been bored if I talked more about
No,
you.
it's okay. You gave a great introduction.
Okay. And since you are great at public speaking yourself, I'm going I know it's a piece of cake for you to talk because you just have the camera in front of you.
Right.
Not the 200 people that you normally have in front of you probably. So if you can tell us a little more about yourself so our viewers could learn more about you. And if you ever see me playing with my phone, I'm not playing, okay? You know that
Totally understand.
I'm just checking the comments and the questions because I do encourage the viewers to post their questions here. دوستای عزیز اگر کسایی که از طریق فیسبوک میبینن لطف کنین سوالاتتون را در این صفحه فیسبوک لایف اگر بنویسین باز من سوالاتتون را به سارا جان پیشکش میکنم و دوستایی که از طریق تلویزیون میبینن از طریق وبسایت ما میبینن اونا میتونن که سوالا را باز در آخر برنامه انشالله که وقت میمونه لاین تلفن باز میباشه میتونن که تلفن کنین. خب سارا جان tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm going into my 4th year, which is my senior year at the University of California, Irvine. I know she gave a little bit of an introduction about where I'm from and, you know, like my major and stuff like that. But just to reiterate, I'm a computer science and engineering major. So what that means is that the majority of my major focuses on computer science and software. And a little bit of that is focused on computer engineering, electrical engineering, and a mix of other hardware skills. I know those are kind of some big technical words, but yeah, I'll go into that a little bit more later. But other than that, one of the things I found to really love about my major is that I get to experiment in both software and hardware. And in doing so, I found that I had quite an interest for machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning, and really pushing those boundaries in healthcare. So yeah, looking forward to that. I actually came in, just as a note, to UCI as a biomedical engineering major. But then I realized that I love coding. And I'll explain how I kind of got to there. But I'd taken some classes in high school and, you know, apparently everyone in those classes thought that I was going to become like a computer scientist. Just nobody wanted to tell me until I got to college and made the decision for myself. So I still love healthcare and that's why I'm still going into that area with computer science. But yeah, I ultimately made the decision to switch, and I'll go into that more later. I know there's a bunch planned.
So, in the first place, why did you choose your major? What made you, like, at what age did you know uh, you want to be in this field? And also, if you tell me or tell us, growing up, what were you thinking to study? So, if you can give us
Yeah,
the background.
so growing up, actually, my dad has a bunch of friends who are engineers, including himself, and he always like pushed for, oh, I really think you'd like computer science, and I always said, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to stay up till like 2, 3 a.m. coding every night, you know, dealing with bugs and errors and stuff like that. So initially in high school, I really found an interest in healthcare, and I was involved in Red Cross. So I learned first aid, basic life support training, bloodborne pathogens training. I had all that under my belt, and I was working first aid stations, so I really loved healthcare. I knew that like I was interested in being a doctor, but I just wanted to stay close to the technology, so that's ultimately why I decided to apply for biomedical engineering. But during high school, I took a class at a community college with an amazing professor, and that totally changed my mind. You know, I loved computer science, but even after that, I still was kind of like, I've loved biomedical engineering for so long. I think I should stay in the field. But what's interesting is once I got to college, you know, the classes were all right in biomedical engineering. I met amazing people, but I think at one point I just realized, like, no, I really love to code. I can't resist not coding anymore. And I saw people in my hall coding, where I lived, and I saw friends coding, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to stay close to that. And I ultimately decided to switch my major, which I did within a couple months by taking classes from outside of the University of California, inside the University of California, you know, doing anything to fast track that and put me on this route. And I guess I didn't realize it, but I fast tracked those courses so much that I'm graduating early this year. So,
No,
yeah, actually, my old professor, I'm still in contact with him, and he said, like, I knew you would be in computer science, and so did my first ever pair programming partner who I was coding with. She's like, I knew you would switch. We both knew you would. It was just a matter of time, and we wanted to let you decide. And I'm really grateful for that.
And it's important that you made that decision, right?
Right.
No one else pushed you to it. Did your parents have any influence on selecting your major, other than your dad being an engineer and all his friends?
Right. Well, my dad was always very fond of me learning about computer science and coding and all those things. And my mom was supportive of whatever made me happy, which was nice. You know, I needed that support. But ultimately, yeah, my dad was right. He's like, I think you'd really like towing around with the logic of coding, and I think you'd like working with computers. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I guess we'll have to see. But I gave in. He was right. So his influence definitely had a reason on why I'm here today.
So, both in high school and college, what were your favorite classes and why?
Ooh, interesting. Well, I guess I'll focus on college because in high school, my favorite class was actually at a community college, not even my high school. And a lot of people might be watching this who are in high school, or maybe your parents are watching. And as a high school student, you can take community college classes in California for free, which I don't know if many people know about that, but I highly recommend experimenting with, you know, different courses while you can before you even get to college. So once you get there, you kind of have an idea of what you like and what you don't like. But yeah, so my favorite classes in college, I'd say my first favorite class was probably one by one of my very first programming professors at UCI. He taught a class in data structures and algorithms, and I felt like everything I was doing in that class was applicable to something I was doing in real life. So maybe when you go on your phone and you type in like, oh, I need to get to the nearest Starbucks, we created something that, you know, mapped the fastest locations between two things. So like experimenting with different theories and algorithms to kind of like build our own mapping system and navigation tools. So that was really cool because I felt like I was doing stuff that really mattered at such an early stage. And my next favorite class was one in computer networks. So computer networks is like how you're able to connect to watch this show, how I'm able to call my parents over the phone, you know, working on telephone lines, working on like international connections to get data sent. And I thought that was really fascinating. I was actually quite nervous to take that class. I remember telling my mom because I remember looking at the coursework and like everything we'd be doing, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea about like how to do any of this. It seems like everyone was speaking like words and it sounded like so foreign to me. It's just a bunch of technical knowledge, and I was like, oh, how am I ever going to do this? But you know, the professor was amazing, and then I sat down and read through the textbook almost every day for hours, and that's actually my favorite college textbook. So I was like very like, even though I was very concerned, like the textbook was awesome and my professor was awesome and he's been there for me so much. So I'm so grateful to have had that experience.
That's awesome. So, taking you back to your comment about our advice to high school students
Mm-hmm.
to take college courses, do you, because I know that the EP classes, you have the option of taking the EP exam and count it towards college credit. Is that what you are recommending, or just take any college course just so for their own use to find out their interest?
Right. So the reason why I took the class at the community college is because I wasn't able to take AP Computer Science at my high school because it conflicted with another AP I was taking.
Right.
And I figured if I wanted to do this in college or to go into engineering in college, I would need some kind of formal credit for that. And I knew that taking it at this community college would specifically transfer to all UCs and Cal States, meaning that it would likely transfer to most private schools that I was interested in applying to. So it was just like a matter of chance. And I'm so glad I did because that was the first class I took. And after that, I took statistics, I took math classes there. The only thing is sometimes you'll need to take a placement exam just so they know you're prepared to take the class beforehand. But, you know, if you study a little bit before, I don't even know if I studied. I think it was mainly just like basic math stuff that they wanted you to know. You'll be fine. And APs, I took a bunch of APs too. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in going into STEM, taking the AP Calculus series before you get to college. Just because it prepares you so well when you're in an environment with only 30 people as opposed to being in a class of like 200 plus people. So that definitely I recommend. But AP classes, like, make sure you take ones that align with things that you're interested in, not just taking them because you want to raise your GPA or, you know, whatever else. But once I got to college, most of my AP classes substituted for course credit, which also was super helpful when I wanted to switch majors because I was already ahead.
That's awesome. So, is that why you're graduating earlier?
Yes, that and a combination of all the community college courses I've taken.
That's wonderful. So, I wanted to know why you chose your college. Did you have something specific in mind that you wanted to go to UCI? What was the reason?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that, well, I applied directly to UCI after my senior year of high school and went directly. I just took community college on the side. Although I have to say that going to community college is a good option to consider because usually most community colleges have your first 2 years for free, or they have like textbook fee payments and stuff that you can take advantage of, which is really nice. But I have no regrets going to UCI directly. So the reason why I chose UCI is, well, I applied to a bunch of schools and then I ultimately was like, oh, where'd I get in? And then it just kind of seemed right to go to UCI. I didn't really put much thought into it. But I will say that I love being at Irvine. There's so many opportunities. What's interesting about Irvine is that it's one of the only UCs, so schools in the University of California system, that has its own dedicated school for computer science as opposed to mixing it in with engineering.
Okay.
So those two schools are separate at UCI, but it's really awesome because that means I get to access resources from both. So that's a big deal to me, you know,
That's
and
good.
there's a lot more funding directly to CS. So it's like we have research opportunities that are above and beyond what other universities might not have.
Would you change anything about UCI to fit your need and to fit what you want to do?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I would change anything about UCI. Maybe instead what I would change about me so that I have a better time at UCI is making more time for my friends, making more times for clubs. Like last quarter I joined so many random clubs just because I wanted to, and I've met so many amazing people through that. Like I joined astronomy club, I joined swing dance club, and you know, after a long day of code or like after a long day of just like filling out applications or applying to internships, it's so nice to just like let your hair down and go to all these clubs. But no, yeah, I don't think there's anything I would change. I think I just wish like maybe I could take part in more of these activities.
Are you planning to more? Because you just have a few more months.
Right.
So are you in any clubs right now too? Like, are you part of the Afghan club by any chance, or?
I am. So I joined a bunch of clubs last year, so I think I'm in all the clubs that align with my interests right
Okay.
now. Sometimes like if the Society of Women Engineers or like Women in ICS has like mentorship stuff going on, I'll join and like help other people. Sometimes I serve as a panelist for the Society of Women Engineers. You know, I feel like I'm in so many clubs already that I'm
Right.
so interested in that there's
Exactly, I
not
can
too
see.
much more that like I would want to join at this point.
What other activities do you have besides studying and being these clubs?
Yeah, so currently I'm involved in campus research. So that's really amazing because I've been involved in research in the past, but that was more so with quantitative data, which means like actual numbers and like Excel spreadsheets and, you know, kind of parsing through that data. But right now, my current professor, whose lab I've just joined, is working on a project for people with vision impairment. And she's ultimately working to help develop technologies to help those people read with their sighted children, which is really, it feels good. Like, it's nice to be a part of Tech for Good. And I've never worked on qualitative studies before, so like interviewing people. So I'm interested to get more experience in that as opposed to just working with data. I feel like you need a good balance of both to be a good researcher.
That's awesome. I'm so impressed with everything that you're doing, and it's really impressive. I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you. Your parents must be very proud of you.
Yeah, I think they're watching. Hi, Mom.
Well, they
Hi,
will be
Dad.
watching. سلام و جمیله جان، عمر جان و همه دوستایی که برنامه رو میبینن. So I'm sure they're very proud of you, and they're so
Thank
happy
you.
that their hard work has paid off.
I know. My dad was really for tech, so I just happened to end up in tech.
Okay, tell me about a project in school that you were particularly really proud of, and why were you proud of it?
Yeah, so I've worked on a lot of coding projects and software projects, but one that I kind of want to highlight is my teaching experience. It's kind of like my own self project. So when I switched from biomedical engineering to computer science, I found that sometimes it was really hard as a newbie to get resources to learn from scratch all the way up without being, you know, overwhelmed with all the knowledge out there in the field. And I was really interested in machine learning. I was just playing around with data for a while, and then someone was like, oh, that stuff you're doing, that prediction stuff and that evaluating and those models that you're making, that's machine learning. And I was like, oh, I guess that's what I like and what I want to do. So ultimately last year, I went ahead and decided to teach a course at UC Irvine. So I worked with a professor, actually a couple of professors throughout the whole year to develop this course, and they had to approve my syllabus. They had to make sure that the course was, you know, UC ready and like ready to teach to a whole class of 30 students, because I was going to be associated as faculty, not necessarily a lecturer or professor, but like a student teacher. So yeah, I taught a class last spring. It got approved, and it was in machine learning for beginners, no code. So, you know, anyone could really come from any major, English, sociology, even engineering. There were a lot of engineering majors in the class, and anyone could come learn about machine learning.
So when you learn about machine learning, how is it going to help you? How do you use that information and knowledge?
Oh, yeah. So that's on machine learning is, you know, the ability, giving computers the ability to think as if they were people. So essentially, like, maybe you're on Facebook a lot and you notice you're getting recommendations. It's basically thinking for the company, oh, what should I put here so that they would like to see that? You know, and it happens a lot with advertisements and stuff. For what I want to do in medical image analysis is that I'm interested in the area of healthcare where, let's say you have like thousands and thousands of scans of someone's like lungs and you're looking for a specific disease. Maybe like a physician looked at thousands of them, and you know, eventually after going to one patient, they're like, oh, you are at risk for this certain disease based on your scan. But I'm interested in creating algorithms that'll look at that patient scan and be like, no, actually they aren't at risk for this disease because of this small section on the scan. Instead, we should be watching out for these diseases. So I'm really interested in working with medical imaging and prediction technologies. Also, I'm interested in, you know, without the medical imaging, clinical natural language processing, which I know is a lot in a big chunk of words to handle. But essentially, it's like if I were to take a bunch of data based on a specific person and then use that data to determine like their likelihood for certain diseases and certain conditions, or predict like what, you know, X and X could happen 20 years down the line. That's one of my goals as well.
Wow, it's very impressive. So all you said is really above my head. So
I hope I broke it down well, though. It's a lot of technology.
And that's why I asked you how would I use it. So that's very impressive. So I know you're very hardworking and very smart, and you have a lot of strengths. But in your own opinion, what is your greatest strength?
I guess my greatest strength, it's a little bit weird to say this about myself, but I guess it's to persevere. Because, you know, a lot of times, like, sometimes you'll be like, oh my gosh, I have so much work I have to do. It's like 2 a.m. This code has to work by the morning. Like, how am I going to do this? So I feel like a lot of times I'll persevere through those moments and I'll work hard to get where I need to be. You know, it's definitely hard to put in the motivation and the time and the effort it takes to get where you need to be when there's so much knowledge you have to absorb. But like, I love what I'm doing. That's ultimately what pushes me to work harder. So I really feel like persevering through those moments is what got me like where I am now. And I'm really grateful for it. You know, I feel like that's a characteristic that I picked up from both of my parents and from the wonderful community of people who I like surround myself with every day at UCI, which is another thing I love about UCI. I feel like the community of people I found pushes me to be better and better. And I'm so grateful for the people I found as friends and who I've met through like classes in my hall. You know, they're a huge reason of why I am where I am today in my major. And I'm so thankful for that too.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. And that's probably a good advice for other young people who are college students. But, so, I hope you don't mind me to ask you, what would you consider your greatest weakness? Because even though, Namkhuda, you're an overachiever, you're very smart, you kind of, you got it all, so
Thank you.
you know what you're doing. But in your own opinion, do you think there's something that you need to work on? Do you see something as a greatest weakness in yourself?
Yeah, so I'm pretty good at time management. I say I'm really good at calendaring things down and getting things down to a T. But I'd say if there's one thing I'd want to work on, it'd probably be like saying no. I say yes to a lot of things and a lot of opportunities, and I recommend that to everyone out there, by the way. But just don't overwhelm yourself with the amount of activities, research, classes you're in. You know, you don't want to burn yourself out because then you don't want to fall short of your goals and then have to, you know, go the extra mile just to motivate yourself to push that way. But yeah, I'd work on like maybe saying no to opportunities that don't really align with my career, but things that, you know, I want to bring forward, and maybe I could say, oh, I could do this like a year from now when I have more time. So just, I guess, making more time to enjoy like, you know, the simple things of life, hanging out with friends, you know, going to clubs more, you know, being able to say no, I'd say.
That's good. So, Namkhuda, you're very successful. And if I were to ask you how you define success, how would you define it?
Oh, this easy question. Happiness. Like if you're successful but you're not happy, or if you think you're successful and you're not happy, like are you really successful? So I'd say as long as you're happy doing what you're doing, it may be hard, it may be really challenging, but at the end of the day, if it's what you love to do, if you're passionate about it, if you feel happy in the process, even though you might feel stressed, you might feel like overwhelmed, then I'd say ultimately you are successful.
That's good. Okay. So, can you tell me? I know you're very well-rounded with your field, so you have done so much and you have accomplished a lot. Are you involved in any kind of research projects? Any research?
Yeah, so I mentioned that last research project, you know, working with, you know, qualitative interviews, working with people. And I've worked on healthcare data before, you know, working to like manage different data sets, scripting different tools. An interesting thing is that I've interned for the past 2 summers. So 2 summers ago, I interned at Qualcomm, and the previous summer, I interned at Oracle. And for anyone out there who's looking to maybe try interning, I'd recommend applying to as many places as you can. You never know where you're going to end up. And sometimes the opportunities that you thought you weren't sure about end up becoming the best, you know, some of the best things for your success. I loved working at Qualcomm. I loved working at Oracle. Both my managers were fantastic. Both the teams were absolutely fantastic too. And I feel like it really pushed my skills to a level that I hadn't expected to have pushed before. But like in a good way. You know, I was learning different things in different fields that I'm like still so interested in learning more about. And you know, it's nice to have that with your teammates or your fellow employees that you're working with. And then aside from the internships I've been a part of, back to teaching, So as a result of teaching that course last spring, I was able to teach a bunch of workshops. So I taught one workshop in machine learning at my work last summer with some of my professional colleagues, so people who had already graduated or who had already started their full-time careers. And more recently, in September, I traveled to Canada, like Waterloo, Canada, to teach at the University of Waterloo, which is a leading computer science university over there. And yeah, so I taught a workshop in an introduction to machine learning, basically a crash course of the entire course I had taught over 10 weeks at UCI.
Wow.
And it was awesome. I think the room was supposed to be intended for like 60 people, but from one of the volunteers who was helping me out, she said 117 had checked into my workshop.
Wow.
So
that's
I didn't
impressive.
I didn't know that there were people standing in the back, otherwise I would have
Wow.
projected louder. But it was my first time teaching with a microphone, and that was super exciting for me because I saw everyone,
Wow.
and it seemed like everyone was staying for the entire lecture, and I was like, these people are here and they're actually learning from me. It's so cool. And I love
Yes.
teaching because, you learn so much, it only makes sense to give back.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
very impressive. So, was this course different than what you designed to teach at UCI?
Yeah, so this was a workshop. So basically, my course was over 10 weeks for anyone of any major at UCI.
Right.
And this workshop was specifically for hackers at a hackathon, which is basically just an event where a bunch of computer science people from all over the world or all over the country come and make projects. So they're learning from you to help create their projects. And even like a couple months ago, I was a hacker at Hack MIT. So I flew to Boston to go and hack that weekend, which is really interesting because I went from being like one of the workshop leaders in Canada to going ahead and being one of the hackers, kind of transitioning roles. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope I get to teach there again in the future. It was wonderful.
What do hackers do?
Oh, okay. So hackers don't necessarily hack. What they do at these events is you're given like 24 hours or 36 hours or 72 hours and you create a project of anything. You could do projects for certain prizes, like maybe there's projects for or prizes for people who are doing healthcare projects, or prizes for people doing projects involving education. So there are different tracks, and it just really depends on like what team you're in, if you want to be on a team, what their rules are, and you just code for like hours and hours on end. But it's really fun. They have cup stacking competitions. They usually have therapy dogs.
Mhm.
They have yoga. I highly recommend anyone in computing or engineering, if they're interested, to just look at some local universities and start applying, because there's so many events locally that you can become a part of. And then eventually, if you'd like, events like nationwide, in different countries. I went to Canada, so.
That's awesome. How do you like that experience?
Oh, I loved Canada. Everyone I met there was super fantastic. And also at these events, a lot of the people are really hardworking. So I feel like being in that environment of like everyone's like excited to learn, everyone wants to be there. There are people from like MIT, University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, like UCLA, and you just meet so many people. It's fantastic.
So, John, what activities do you do outside of work and school?
Yeah, so I love to be outside. I love hiking. I love the outdoors. I love nature. Kind of interesting because I'm in computer science. So you wouldn't expect me to say that, I guess, because I guess I just like to unplug from like the technology and be outside. Actually, during quarantine, we couldn't go out and do much. So a couple of my friends and I learned how to roller skate. So I remember like I was roller skating at night, and then I'd come into like work the next day, and like everyone would be like, "Oh, like you're learning to roller skate," and I'd be like, "Yeah, you're never too old to learn anything." By the way, if anyone here is like older and considering college, go for it. Like if you want to do that, go ahead and do it. So yeah, I guess in my free time I love spending time outdoors. I did learn how to roller skate, which was interesting, but yeah, I'd say just to get out of that space of being like so close to your computers and so close to your phone, it's a nice break.
When you were in high school, were you involved in any kind of extracurricular activities?
Yeah, so I was really involved in Red Cross. One year I served as co-president of the club, and then another year I was on the regional level. So I worked with people from a bunch of different schools to plan activities, plan events and whatnot. And it helped me learn a lot myself about being a leader and being out in the community and learning how to plan and interact with different kinds of people. And I'd say another, like for 4 years in high school, I was in tennis. And then the last 2, I was a co-captain. Yeah, and I really,
Nice.
it was fun because the last 2 years, every Friday, I would do like yoga bonding with them. So, we'd all get together and we do yoga. And I'm not like in any way trained in yoga, so it was kind of like comical to see what I'd end up doing. But I feel like it bonded us more.
That's awesome. That's good to know. What would or how would you describe your ideal job?
Yeah, so right now I'm applying to programs for a PhD in computer science. So I'm hoping to start that in fall 2023. And what's interesting, if anyone else is interested in applying to graduate school or doctoral programs, is that most schools should fully fund a PhD applicant. So if you do decide to go for a PhD program, it's typically fully funded. And in most programs, they typically award you a master's along the way.
That
So-
was my question.
Yeah.
Can you just jump from a bachelor's degree to a PhD?
Right. So you definitely can. I'd say the thing that you'd want to keep in mind before doing that, though, is that you know kind of what field you want to go into. So I want to go into AI and machine learning and computer vision and healthcare. But maybe if you don't know exactly what field you want to be in, if you're not sure what major to apply for, it's really difficult to switch once you're in the program, because you apply specifically to that program in computer science, and you specifically talk to faculty who are going to be your future advisors, and you want to make sure that they can guide you in this area of study. So that's a little note on applying. But yeah, so I'm currently applying to an array of schools with faculty that can support my research work and my ideal goals, because afterwards I'd really like to go into industry research, so maybe working with a company to further their research goals. And then on the side of that, I'd like to go into teaching and maybe some professorship roles. I'd really like to go into graduate diversity roles. So a lot of times, a lot of schools have a director or a dean just focusing on graduate, focusing on enhancing the graduate and undergraduate, the welfare of the people in the program, making sure that people feel comfortable where they are, that they don't feel like imposters or anything in their field. So I'd really love to come back and be that in engineering. So that's one of my goals. So teaching, industry research, and coming back and being like kind of like a role model for other people, or kind of being like a mentor. Well, thank you. Yeah, I just hope that I can pass this knowledge down to other people, and that maybe they don't feel like as like nervous to go into such fields, because if people like us have gone this far to do things like that, anyone totally can. Anyone can pursue a career in tech.
And that's very nice of you that, and it's very kind and generous of you to share your knowledge and experience, so people could follow the same path or your footstep too. It will make it much easier for them, because they don't have to probably experience too many obstacles.
Right.
And not that you have, because you probably got it. Did you have any obstacles on the way?
I'd say, when everyone starts in like a career like technology, it's normal to feel a little bit like an imposter. But I think ultimately it's what you do along the way to, overcome those feelings. So essentially, like working hard, reading textbooks, going to your professors and asking for help, looking for guidance in fellow students and graduate students. For me, one of the biggest things is that, I was luckily able to get into that tech space, understand what I wanted to do, but just coming in, tech is so big. Like, do I want to go into, user research? Do I want to go into machine learning? Do I want to go into front end work or website design? So there's so many different fields. I feel like really surrounding yourself with people who can guide you and show you different things is what, brought me to where I am. But I do want to emphasize again is that I found a community at UCI, from people in my hall, from friends I've met along the way, who have really helped me to where I am today. And their support has been so tremendous throughout this entire process, and my family's support. Because, to get as far as you can, sometimes you need a support system in place. However so that might be, however you develop that support system, I think it's a huge part of ensuring that you can have a successful college career. Maybe you find this in classmates, maybe you find this in professors or lecturers or other teaching faculty. If you can surround yourself with people who can help push you towards your goals and, push you towards those challenges, then ultimately you're doing the best thing for yourself.
Very good. So if you had no limitations, Sarajan, how would you spend your time?
Ooh, interesting. I'd probably spend 50% of my time outside and 50% of my time coding. Because, I feel like even when I don't code for too long, like for maybe if I spend a month away from actually coding, it just feels weird, I'm not doing actual tech work and I'm like, oh, I need to go back and start on a side project or something. I'm really lucky because I love the research that I'm a part of and I love what I'm learning. So that luckily has kept me close to some of the technical work. But in other words, like spending time outside, you know, making sure I have time to unplug, you know, and along with spending time outside, spending time with friends, you know, trying random new things like going to swing dance club or like astronomy club, you know, finding that balance is really important. And I'd say time management is a huge deal. Make sure you don't overbook yourself, but make sure you plan in some time for social stuff, you know, meeting new people, having fun.
All right, that's wonderful. So, what do you think takes to be successful in college?
You know, that's a hard question because, you know, a lot of people are first generation, like including myself. So it's thinking like, what goals do you have to have in place? So I think just being open, like if I were to tell myself coming into college what I should do, I would probably, well, first of all, I wish I had taken more community college classes when I was in high school because the credits from those classes are so awesome. And at the time it was free. So I wish I had known about that earlier. I'm happy with the amount of APs I took. I took as many APs that I was interested in. So I'm lucky to have had that all like fit nicely into my schedule. So I'd say those are two big things.
So, the community class courses, while you were in high school, you wish you took them?
I wish I took more.
When you were in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's an amazing opportunity to kind of get a feel for college before you really head into that environment.
Okay.
I'd say as I was heading in, I wish like I'm glad I also kept these things in mind, but I'd say really stay open. You might come in as an English major, but maybe you end up loving computer science and you switch to computer science. Or like me, maybe you come in as biomedical engineering, but you realize that you really love something else. Taking the courage to switch your major is a huge deal, and you know, it takes a lot of work sometimes to do that, but if you're confident in that that's what you love doing and that's what you're passionate for, however much extra time it'll take to make that switch is definitely worth it. And then, so I'd say definitely be open to learning new things. You know, if you're passionate about something, do what you can to pursue it. I know that sometimes college courses are limiting, but you can definitely take electives. There are clubs that can help you pursue that field. Get involved with people on campus and meet new people and talk to them through those clubs. And, you know, the biggest thing I'd have to say is finding a community. I'm so glad to have found a community while I was in high school and college who could support me in these goals and my research goals and my future goals. You know, even going to pursue a PhD, they've all been so generous and nice. You know, family support. So I'd say find a community of people who can help push you to be a better version of you and challenge yourself to try new things, because sometimes you may realize, oh, I've said yes to so many things. They're going to be the people who are like, maybe you should relax a little and like, you know, try going to more club events or something, or, you know, why don't you go like study at like a cafe or something, you know, to kind of relax. So those are the people who really have gotten me to where I need to be, and I'm so grateful for them because, you know, as much as you pursue your own goals and you're on it and you're doing your own work, sometimes it just helps to have someone there to support you, or if you're feeling down. Yeah.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what does your regular day look like? What's your normal routine every day?
Yeah, so I guess typically when I'm on a full-time schedule, I typically wake up. Exercise is very important too. So I'll try to plan in, I guess every day is different because, you know, your class schedule is different, but I'll typically go to classes. I'll try to make time to work out. And what has helped me a lot is that I try to plan my meals out in advance just so I make sure that like I'm eating and stuff. Because a lot of college students, like, they end up getting so busy that they end up like not having time to eat or stuff. So I try to pack meals when I can. So going to classes, you know, packing meals. I try to make time to exercise, you know, whether that's going to like swing dance club or just getting a fresh air and going out on a walk with a friend. That's typically something I try to do. Usually I go to the gym or, you know, the campus gym or like anywhere nearby that the school typically like funds, because they have gyms for students.
Right.
And then at night I spend a lot of time at club meetings or just hanging out with friends and studying together. It's a nice way to like take the edge off of a long day's work.
Exactly. So do you live on campus?
I live in an apartment nearby campus, but it is considered on campus.
Okay. Were you in a dorm the first year?
Yes.
How do you describe that experience? How do you like it?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much like, I'm an easygoing person. Like, you know, messes don't really bother me or anything. If anything, like, you know, sleep, like, alarms don't bother me, noise doesn't bother me. So I'd say that, like, it was pretty, like, it was actually really nice because I met most of my friends right now through living in the dorms first year, which is why I absolutely don't regret going directly to UCI because they've been my community. And when you apply to college, you can typically say, I want to live in like these kinds of halls. So maybe you want to live in a hall that's themed about nature, or maybe you want to live in a hall that's themed specifically for space. I lived in a STEM hall, which means that everyone in my hall was either like science, technology, engineering, or math. There's a couple people in other majors like business who I'm also like still in touch with, and it's just interesting because those people have formed the community that I'm so close with today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you live together 24/7. Like you just knock, you go next door and you knock on their door, and oh, you want to go get food at like the dining hall or the cafeteria, which is a great place to study, by the way. I love studying in the dining hall, but like it was an amazing experience because I found so many good friends who were there for me during times that I wouldn't like expect to have needed someone, that I'm so grateful that I'd met them all.
Good. So when you pack food, do you make them yourself in your apartment?
Yeah, so typically I'll just like, you know, like salad kits or buy like ready to go sandwiches and stuff that's easy to grab and on the go. Cereal bars are really helpful in the morning, or like instant oatmeal.
So the reason I was asking, so it could be something healthy but easy, so that's good.
Yeah, salad kits are really easy. Also, most places nearby your college should know that like that's going to be like their biggest selling products, the ready to go products, and they'll definitely have stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, so in 5 years, I hope to have had my PhD by then. Your PhD programs are 4 to 6 years when you get your master's along the way, but I hope to finish in 4. I hope to have a research career in the industry, you know, working in healthcare, working with doctors and physicians on a daily basis. I hope to be teaching on the side, maybe outside of that work schedule at nearby colleges, community colleges. Again, like I love the community college system. I'd love to go back and be that professor who helped inspire me to join Code. Aside from that, I think, yeah, that's my main goal in 5 years. And then hopefully eventually take on some diversity work. You know, I'd love to teach people from underrepresented communities more about STEM and really spread that knowledge so that they feel like they have a jumping pad to go into these fields.
Very good. So I'm proud of your parents for raising an only child to be so independent.
Yeah.
So that's important. That's because being an only child, it has its advantages and disadvantages. But you're very lucky that your parents did not keep you isolated at home.
Yeah, I'm very lucky for that. I have a huge family too, so it really never feels like you're alone. There's always someone to talk to.
Right.
And I feel like my friends in high school, they were a huge, like, I'm so grateful. Sometimes I feel like I'd be coding for hours on end, and they'd be like, no, you're gonna go outside and, like, go get, like, I don't know, like, boba or like, coffee with us. Like, you need to put down the stuff for today. Yeah, and sometimes they wouldn't give me a choice. They just show up at my house, and then my parents would be like, nah, you have to go. And I was like, okay, this is a sign.
That's awesome. That's good. What kind of music do you like?
Ooh, this is a good question. So I really, really, really love 70s music and anything disco. Like if my roommate were, like if I were to be with my roommate and I were to unplug my headphones, she'd be hearing disco 24/7, like ABBA, the Bee Gees. Bee Gees was actually my top Spotify artist last year, and ABBA was like my top album last year, like all her albums. So yeah, I just feel like I like to be grooving and dancing. That's like my preferred choice of exercise too. It's a nice way to let loose at the end of a day. You know, you're like over a computer all day. Like it's just nice to like let go. And sometimes even when you're working, like it's just nice to like groove to the disco as you're coding or writing up an application.
Do you care for African music also or no?
Yes, I do. I feel like if it's good dancing music, I'll like it.
Good. I'm not going to ask you who's your favorite artist because you probably don't want to be in that position unless you want to.
Well, I don't know if it's like specific songs or specific artists, but when it comes on, I'm just like, oh, I'm hitting the dance floor. That's a good song.
That's good. Awesome. So is there anything I have not asked you that you would like to share with the viewers that could help them or they will find interesting?
Yeah. So I guess what I would find, well, first, I'd like to take like just a second to acknowledge the land we're on. You know, I'm not sure like what Native American territories have been here, but or groups have been here, but you know, just acknowledging the land and being grateful for everything that has brought me to this point today. You know, my friends, my family, the people I've met at UC Irvine, who have basically become family in a sense too.
Yes,
I'm so grateful for them, and cousins who have who are probably watching at home too. Thankful for all of that. But if I were to tell the audience anything, it'd be success is happiness. If you're doing what you love, then ultimately you are in the right profession. If you're doing, just keep pursuing what makes you happy and what you feel passionate towards, because as long as you're doing that, my dad always says, like, if you're doing what you're passionate about, you will always find success en route to that. So I'm grateful for that. At the end of this degree, I'll get my undergrad degree, but I'll ultimately be so thankful for the journey that brought me here. A lot of times people are like, oh, I just need to get the college degree and I'll be good. But then they look back and you're like, wow, that was a really awesome experience where I learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about the people I'm friends with, who I was also able to support as much as they supported me. And it's just great to hear about that exchange of stuff. But the top 4 things I would say, or maybe 3 or 4 things, is like, yeah, really, explore your passions early. It's okay to take a class and to not like that. It just means you need to try something different. And then when you go to college, be open, be passionate. Understand that you might have interdisciplinary likes. So I liked healthcare. I liked computer science. Eventually I decided maybe computer science was the right route to go. But for someone else in my situation, maybe they really like the biomedical engineering courses that they would have to take instead of the computer science courses, and be like, oh, I'd rather go on this route. So being open, being passionate, I guess that's like a 2 and 3 kind of thing. And number 4, really finding a community of people who challenge and push you to be better, because I am so incredibly thankful for those people.
That's wonderful. And let's read some of the comments. Maybe I will let you read them. You can read them out loud because they're okay.
Okay.
They're good comments. So, of course, they're always good comments. I'm saying they're not for me, they're for you. You can read them out loud and just keep going up. Or maybe we can.
Oh, to someone who commented, I'm actually already fluent in Python and C++. C++ was my first programming language, and I hold that very near and dear to my heart. Even though I know Python's, taking a greater presence in, my past 2 internships were basically in Python as well. So just because it's easier to interface with other technologies. Let me see.
Mr. John Nadi said, biomedicine is amazing. Good luck. So,
thank you.
And Faria John says, wow, that's so nice and very impressive. It definitely is. So, Mr. Bahal's comment, you already answered that.
Does anyone have any specific questions maybe? I don't know if the phone lines are...
اگر دوست عزیز اگر سوالی داشته باشین میخواین تلفن کنین میتونیم که لاینای تلفن بگیریم چند دقیقه دیگه هم وقت داریم واقعا که تجربه سارا جان نام خدا بسیار زیاد وسیع و فهم و دانشش و بسیار سوی بلند است دیگه امیدوار هستم که یک نمونه و رول مدل خوبه برای جوانای ما برای همه بوده باشه و امیدوار هستم که استفاده خوبه از صحبت‌های سارا جان کرده باشین. It's very impressive. Actually, you're very impressive. Your
Thank you.
knowledge, your dedication to what you're pursuing, how much you put into it. That's a lot. If you were to change anything, did I ask you this question or not?
Maybe. You asked about UCI.
Yeah, no, in general. If you were to change anything that you have done so far, what would be one or two things that you would change?
Honestly, I have no regrets. My biggest thing when I make a decision going forward is, will I regret this in this future, or will I regret not doing this? And I try to base all my decisions off of that. I feel like everything that's happened in my career has happened for a reason.
Right.
I switched from biomedical to computer science for a reason, because I could better pursue biomedical as a computer scientist. Ultimately, I met the friends that I did for a reason. They pushed me to become better.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided to pursue doctoral programs because of all these experiences. And I really love being involved in research. And along with that, I'd say, like, for someone who might be thinking, like, is there anything I would change, listening to what I've just said in the past 30 minutes, I'd probably say, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to, accept that maybe you do love coding. Maybe it'll be hard some days, but honestly, like, it's so worth it. Like, after 5 minutes, like, if something's really hard and you're scared and you're putting it off, just say, okay, I'll just do it for 5 minutes and then I'll see like what happens. And then at that point you're like, okay, maybe I'll try another 5 minutes, and then it'll just keep spiraling and you'll realize, oh, I'm really getting the hang of this. Because when most things are scary at first, it just means that you need to work harder to become better at it. It may take time, it may take a lot of hard work, there might be some hard nights, but ultimately you'll get to that goal, and it'll be the journey. You'll be like, wow, I'm so proud. Like a few years ago, like I might have been nervous to do this, but now like here I am doing what I'm doing.
So in your field, everyone that are in your classes, are they normally younger generation or they're older people also?
Right. So in most of my classes, everyone I know is typically around my age, in their early 20s. But from time to time, you'll see people who are 40, maybe even older. I don't know if they're just doing like a certificate program or if they're there to pursue their undergraduate degree. But I'm lucky to be at a school with a pretty welcoming environment. I feel like, again, the people you formulate closest to you are the people who will push you to become better. So really finding that circle of people in your classes who can support you is important. But I'd say like the demographic really isn't like the hugest concern, as long as like you're doing what makes you passionate and you feel like those people in your circle can support you to do so.
Okay. How would you respond to Mr. Baha's last comment about your PhD program? Where would you want to go?
Yeah, I'm actually applying to those schools. So currently there are researchers at UCLA, Caltech, Stanford, and Berkeley, and some even at MIT that are in my area of research. I am applying to these schools, and my biggest goal in choosing a school is that the advisor I work under, who will like ultimately be the person I work with for the next 4 to 6 years, can help me and advise me in my research goals and guide me to become a better researcher. So long as I'm working with someone who can really get me to where I need to be and maybe guide me, it's almost like an apprenticeship. You're ultimately working under them and you're guided by them to pursue those goals independently on your own. So as long as the research at whichever school I'm admitted to aligns with my goal, that's like my biggest thing.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
You are a true inspiration. And it's really, I'm just inspired listening to you and thinking about, wow, this is a lot that you know in your young age. And how old are you?
I'm 22. I don't know why I had to think about that. Yeah.
That's very young. So you are so well accomplished already, ready to start your PhD program. And not just PhD, I mean, everything you're doing is just amazing.
Thank you.
You're an amazing young lady.
Thank you. And I guess just to tally off that question, if anyone is viewing, like parents or people applying to different programs, where you go to school does matter a little, but what matters most is you're doing what you love at that school. If you're providing opportunities that'll push you to become better at that school, that's what matters most. And I'm lucky to have gone to a university that's so huge and so research based, that'll help me pursue the rest of my research career. But at this university, like, there's so many opportunities, and like I was able to switch my major because there's a wide array of majors I could choose from. Just make sure you're choosing schools that'll support you in your end goals, even if you're not too sure what those end goals are. As long as you feel like you can find your community there and you can find a subject you're passionate about, that's what matters most.
Thank you very much. So this is it for today. I'd love to have you again once you finish your PhD, or if you think that, okay, this experience could be beneficial. So just email me, please.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful that you have the show. You're doing the community a service.
Thank you.
And I hope that one day, like, the people of Afghanistan, like, both the women and men alike, will be able to go pursue an education like I have. Personally, maybe I'll form some initiative in the future to bring that back to light.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
خب دوستان عزیز، امیدوار هستم که از صحبت‌های بسیار مقبول و عالی و معلومات بسیار خوبی که سارا جان در مورد خود و رشته خود با ما در میان گذاشت استفاده خوب کرده باشین و لذت برده باشین. واقعا لذت بخش است وقتی جوانای ما میبینیم که نام خدا به این سویه رسیدن و ای که هنوز هم امو احساس را دارن که امو با اصل خود یعنی متوجه هستن و ای که برای همه مردم افغانستان، نه تنها برای دخترها و زنان افغان، بلکه برای همه آرزو داره که این دروازه تعلیمات عالی و دروازه تحصیل برایشان باز باشه و به می فکر باشن. یک جای خوشی و افتخار است که اقدر جوانای با احساس داریم، با وجودی که سارا جان آنقدر مصروفیت های خودش در رشتهش که یک رشته بسیار مشکل و مغلق است مصروف است، ولی باز هم امی احساس داره که یک روز بتونه یک کار کنه که برای هموطنای ما در داخل کشور هم مصدر خدمت شده بتونه. خب دوست عزیز ارجمند، باز هم از پشتیبانی و حمایتتان از برنامه‌های جهان سپاس و از اینکه همیشه میمونای عزیز من تشویق میکنین و همچنان خود ما هم مورد تشویق و محبتتان قرار میدین. یک دنیا ممنون. بدون پشتیبانی و مهربانی و لطف شما، یعنی ادامه دادن چنین برنامه‌ای برای 15 سال برای ما یعنی امکان پذیر نمی بود. اما وقتی جوانای مثل سارا جان میبینم و میمونای عزیز که میارم میبینم، برای من زیادتر میفهم که خب شاید ما اگر چیز زیادی کرده نمیتونم، اقلا یک پل ارتباطی بین میمونای موفق مثل سارا جان و شما بیننده های عزیز می باشم که بتانم که اینا را از طریق برنامه ما با شما معرفت پیدا کنن و شما با ایشان البته معرفت پیدا کنین و یک چیز از پیشان بیاموزین. و اگر سوالات زیادتر یعنی اختصاصی در مورد رشته سارا جان داشته باشین که برای شما و یا فرزندتان کمک میکنه، میتونین شما با ما ایمیل کنین و در صفحه فیسبوک میتونین بنویسین. انشالله که سارا جان پاسخگوی پرسش هایتان می باشه. و با تشکر مجدد از سارا جان عزیز و از همکار عزیز ما، شما بینندگان عزیز و ارجمند، برنامه امروز به اینجا به پایان میرسانیم. تا هفته آینده خداوندیار و مددگارتان. خداحافظ. تشکر سارا جان.
Thank you.
پیر برنا بود.
آریانا افغانستان یگانه شبکه تلویزیونی ملی افغانها در خارج از کشور.
مراسم تدفین و ترحیم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. بازگشت همه به سوی اوست. عزیزه خوگیانی همسر، احمد فرید خوگیانی و عنایت الله خوگیانی پسران، فریده خوگیانی و فرشته خوگیانی دختران، عزیز الله خوگیانی، نجیب الله خوگیانی، زمر کوجیانی، خلیل الله خوگیانی و سمیع الله خوگیانی برادران، نجیبه مسعود خوگیانی، زرینه خوگیانی، ورشمینه انعام، رونا قادر و گلاله خوگیانی خواهران، عتیق الله خوگیانی و جاوید سعید دامادان، لیلا خوگیانی و نوشین خوگیانی عروسان، هما خوگیانی، مسیح الله خوگیانی، یوسف خوگیانی، عایشه خوگیانی، زین خوگیانی، سمیه خوگیانی و عزیر خوگیانی نواسه ها، مرزه خوگیانی و کریمه خوگیانی همسران برادران، بیبی آمنه کوهستانی دختر عمه، محمد میاجی و احمد شکیب اسمت دامادان عمه، عبدالملک عرف معروف و عبدالله خان خوگیانی، عبدالکریم خوگیانی، سید اسماعیل مسعود نورین انعام، نصیر انعام و ظفر انعام خواهرزاده ها، زکاالله خوگیانی، فهیمه فرمولی، کامله خوگیانی، خالد عبدالله خوگیانی، ورزلا خوگیانی و شکرالله خوگیانی برادرزاده ها، دکتر شاولی الله